With Leagues 4 aka Trailblazers Reloaded ending in about 10 days, I wanted to make a video going through all the different relics just in case there are new players or people that haven't reached tier 7, tier 8, or if you're going through your 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th different account. Anyways, this is based off of my personal experience and also friends who chose different relics doing different things. This video is going to be kind of long, kind of ranty. Feel free to skip through the different timestamps and let's get into it. Tier 1 is split into Endless Harvest, Production Prodigy, and the most popular one, Trickster. So, for Endless Harvest, resources gathered from fishing, woodcutting, and mining are doubled, experience is given extra for the extra resources. Everything is sent directly to the bank or to the player's inventory. Endless Harvest, more for the people that enjoy AFKing. To be honest, it doesn't really matter that much in the long term due to the boosted experience rates, and if you don't really need that many supplies in order to get, let's say, 99, 25, 35, and 50 million XP. Another reason why this is kind of not as good is because we do have banknote and crystal memories. Crystal memories allows you to teleport back, which everybody does have, and if you do choose the banknote relic later on, you could always just note the supplies. For me personally, I chose Production Prodigy, which gives boosted 12 levels into crafting, smithing, herb lore, fletching, and cooking. Another benefit is that all items are processed at once when performing a lot of different activities, including fletching, smelting, cleaning herbs, cooking food, and crafting. And one of my main reasons why I chose this is that there is a 25% chance the players will make an extra product which is sent directly to the bank in their space, which also does give extra XP. The boosted levels are kind of nice in the early game when you can't reach the specific levels when you're in a time crunch, but let's be honest, with all the boosted XP rates, it only takes a couple of minutes. In the short term, it's really nice because that means you don't really have to do the grinds, but once you get to level 87 and onwards, it's pretty much just useless. One of the main reasons why I chose this is actually because of the 25% chance that players will make an extra product, which has an extra layer that people don't talk about enough. When you do things that are multi-step processing, it actually doubles the chances. So for instance, when you're cleaning herbs, it does give you a 25% extra chance to make another cleaned herb that is sent to your bank. And when you also put into the vial of water, it also gives you another 25% chance. Effectively, this does mean that your item is now worth 1.56 times its original value compared to the 1.25 that most people only talk about. Basically, this does include things just as herb lore, for smithing, or for anything that basically requires double processing. When you get to triple processing, obviously that's another thing. For me personally, I was just really worried about supplies running out. Until late game, I realized that I really don't need that many supplies. The instant processing allows you basically to not have to AFK anything, which is kind of nice, but at the same time, honestly, just go do something else in your room for a little bit and just AFK come back. RuneScape does get kind of tiring where if you just play everything really efficiently, so there's that. The next one is Trickster, which is apparently the most popular one. Basically, you do have Sage's Greaves, which does give you agility levels passively. From what I understand, a lot of people never actually ended up training agility, and they do get 99s, which is great if you want to max, but let's be honest, agility doesn't really matter except for the agility shortcuts and everything like that, because we do have infinite run energy. Players will always succeed in performing actions for thieving, agility, hunter, and fire making. Max amount of coin pouches players can hold is like triple. Players can automatically re-pickpocket NPCs. Loot is doubled and converted to banknotes, and block traps will lure creatures faster, give double loot and hunter experience, impling jars will never break, and basically you can burn up 9 logs at the same time. This one is really good for people who want to AFK in the early games. The amount of AFK you could do when it comes to basically early game pickpocketing master farmers, or if you do have Mauritania, you want to pickpocket Firewatch Sentinels. These are really good for money, and if you want to get the blood shards for XP, and honestly just a lot of really good things, and basically, as I said, you don't have to train agility. Some of these categories are really weird. It's almost like they just took anything that people don't like and just put it into here. Hunter obviously felt weird to kind of be here. Fire making with the 9 tiles that it takes kind of looks a little bit weird. Maybe if they change it to bonfires or something, that would be kind of nice. Overall, a really good one that I missed out on, but it is what it is. So let's talk about tier 2, Fairy's Flight and Globetrotter. Fairy's Flight gives you a fairy mushroom that allows you to teleport to any fairy ring, spirit tree, or tool leprechaun, which is the only thing that is outside of the main game. Globetrotter allows you to have a Globetrotter pendant, which allows you to teleport to all locations from an ornate jewelry box and pretty much every single spellbook teleport. So let's break it down. Reason why I personally chose the Fairy's Flight is because you do have unique teleports, which you don't see ever in the main game, which is teleporting to Tool Leprechauns. It's really nice if you do herb runs and farm runs and everything. Having the teleports is nice. Obviously, this is assuming you don't pick the Farmer's Fortune later on. Some of these spots for Tool Leprechauns is pretty interesting, and I feel like it's just overall something that's really nice. For me personally, I figured later on that I would use the Ornate Jewelry Box to make in my house. So when I was doing my planning, I figured, hey, we'll just have basically Fairy's Flight plus the Ornate Jewelry Box means that I can teleport to anywhere I want. In the end, I didn't even make the Ornate Jewelry Box. I didn't really travel that much. And if I did, I used the Fairy's Flight and kind of just moved around from there. I personally still think it's a really, really great one, mainly just because the Tool Leprechaun teleports are different from the main game, and it's just interesting. The reason why I didn't choose Globetrotter, as I mentioned, was because I figured I could just replace it with a jewelry box in my POH, but I didn't account for the fact that some teleports are locked by Spellbook, which are not accessible by all regions since we are doing Trailblazer Reloaded. With the Globetrotter, you can basically access all different teleports regardless of Spellbook, which means you get to basically have a few ones that are very interesting. For instance, if you're doing Mauritania Barrow runs and you don't have the Arceus Spellbook from Zaya, you can actually still teleport to Barrows, and you don't have to also worry about getting runes and all that kind of stuff, and it's just a nice thing overall. Now, let's talk about Tier 3, which is the biggest debate from everybody. Let's break it down. It is Fire Cell and Banker's Note. Banker's Note basically gives you an item which allows you to note and unnote different items, as long as it can be noted. It also gives you the option to just toggle, which means you could just one click and note, unnote different items depending on your choosing. This has so many different uses in different scenarios, which is why I personally chose it. This can be useful for any different scenario, whether you're skilling or PVMing, right? So if you're doing rune crafting, you have enough pure essence. If you're doing construction and you have enough planks, you can basically just keep everything noted and unnote as you go, which creates very, very interesting things and very, very fast XP rates. And you just don't have to run. Obviously, this can be negated by using just a teleport and a Crystal Memories, which you could do. But in the early game, when you do have a cooldown of 6 minutes, this is not as good. But the main reason why I chose this though was because of PVM encounters. I'm not good at PVM, which means that I can actually just eat up whenever I want in raids. There are so many times when I use up to 200-300 pieces of Karambwan when I'm in a raid, and it's just so helpful to not have to worry about running out of supplies whenever you're doing PVM or whatever you want. So when I'm doing raids, I bring in about 5,000 different Karambwans and 300-400 super restores. It's just so nice to have everything noted, and you can stay in as long as you want. I'm about to learn Infernal for the first time on stream, link right here. And it's just so nice to not have to worry about running out of supplies. Side note, always bring more food than you think you need. If you do have Banker's Note, you have absolutely no reason to run out of food in any encounter. Just bring more. The other side is Fire Cell, which means that everything is basically free in the game. Money no longer is anything except for death coffers, I guess. And you can basically stock up with everything, and everything is in noted form. Compared to Banker's Note, which is really useful for the late game, Fire Cell is so good for early when you're really not that stacked on GP and you just want infinite amounts of supplies. When it comes to runes, ammunition, even when you're trying to complete tasks for obsidian armor or anything, you could always get runes, sell them for toggle, and then exchange them directly to obsidian armor, which makes a lot of the tasks really, really fast. However, it really, really does fall off late game, which is why I personally chose the Banker's Note. Now, let's go to Tier 4, which for me is the defining tier when it comes to this leagues. You have the Archer's Embrace, Brawler's Revolve, and Superior Sorcerer, which basically allows you to specialize in either ranged, melee, or magic. So let's go through them. Everything basically gives you a double attack speed, which is really, really nice. And they have a few specialized perks according to the different combat styles that you have. For ranged, range accuracy is doubled, successful hits have a 10% chance to fire an extra projectile, and you do save 90% of ammunition. With Ava's devices, you do get a maximum of 98. One of the main things is Enchanted Bolts have a double chance to activate. Archer's Embrace is one of the main things that my friends ended up choosing, and it's great for a lot of different raids and high-level PVM, just like in the main game. If you're doing group content, you'll end up MVPing quite a lot of times. However, it does seem like it's very, very dependent on RNG, since the majority of the time, you would end up being reliant on your bolt procs, including ruby bolt specs, diamond bolt specs, and all that kind of stuff. If you're unlucky, you would just end up hearing that your bolts aren't bolting, and it's just unlucky, I guess. Personally, for me, I ended up choosing Brawler's Resolve because Dorgo Bonk is funny. Brawler's Resolve is the melee specialization that gives you immunity to all status effects, such as Poison, Venom, Dragonfire, Icy Breath. There's a 10% chance to crit, aka do double damage, and you will save 90% of the charges you use on applicable melee weapons, such as the Scythe charges. Obviously, you still have the double attack speed as normal, but the main reason why I decided to choose this is because the player's melee accuracy as well as melee, ranged, and magic defense are increased by 50%. This makes for a very special build called the Door build. For anybody that doesn't know about the Din's Bulwark, it is basically a really tanky shield that scales off of defense. If you combine that with the Justiciar armor set from Tub, you become really tanky, hit up to 120s, 130s, and at the same time, it's just really funny to see a door hit so fast and so hard. It's a funny relic. I don't know how else to say it, man. It's funny. I personally just chose this again because of how different it is in the main game. You would never ever see anybody using Din's Bulwark as a main weapon, but in leagues you see Dorgo Bonk and it's funny as hell. So let's talk about the major relic, Superior Sorcerer. Players will save 90% of the runes, and in multi-combat areas you could do splash damage up to 5 different targets with 25% of the initial damage. Spells such as Bind and Freeze will always hit, which is really nice in teams, and you will be given the Arcane Grimoire and Rune Pouch. So you can basically switch spellbooks whenever you want, and your Rune Pouch will allow you to hold up to 5 different types of runes, and if you have the Divine Rune Pouch, that makes it 6. Superior Sorcerer is very interesting because you do get to swap spellbooks, which means you get summon a Thrall, then go to Freeze, and then you blood spells to basically just sustain yourself. It's a lot of work, but you do get a lot of damage, especially, let's say, if you have a Tumika's Shadow. If you're too lazy to swap spellbooks, the fact that you also have Sangstaff to hit very fast and hard while healing at the same time, or if you want to use a Tumika's Shadow, there are a lot of ways to do a lot of damage and be very helpful in terms of utility at the same time. However, it does feel like sometimes that you end up having to do a lot of the utility stuff on the team, but once you do get a Tumika's Shadow, everything is over. Nobody else will ever be MVP except for you. Tier 5 to me feels a little bit underwhelming, but let's talk about it. Bloodthirsty, Infernal Gathering, and Treasure Seeker. Infernal Gathering pretty much gives you a set of Trailblazer tools that are undegradable versions of crystal tools with some additional effects. Every single tool allows you to perform 1 tick faster, except for Harpoon, which performs 2 tick faster than normal tools. For Trailblazer Axe, you do get to burn the logs whenever you chop a tree. Pickaxe allows you to automatically smith it, and Harpoon allows you to automatically cook the fish. Infernal Gathering is really good for AFK skilling. Combine that with Endless Harvest, it's really nice. However, it does become kind of a hindrance when you're looking for raw fish, ores, or getting logs when you're trying to do something else. I don't know why you would, but you know, just in case. Let's talk about the speed really quick. When it comes to skilling, honestly for me, I really enjoy the AFK-ableness, which means that for me, if I wanted to make Infernal Gathering really nice, I would need Endless Harvest. And that makes the 1 tick really worth it. However, because I don't have Endless Harvest, the fact that I'm doing everything 1 tick faster actually makes it even worse for me because now I actually have to pay attention for what I'm skilling. Honestly, with the boosted XP rates, how much time do you actually save trying to get 50 mil in, let's say, mining, woodcutting, or fishing? I don't think it's really worth that. Also, if you're really that efficient, you would find ways to tick manipulate it as well. So for me, Infernal Gathering was kind of not that much of a good pick. Now, let's talk about Treasure Seeker, the one that I picked and I deeply regret. NPCs that drop clue scrolls have a 1 out of 15 chance of dropping one, including Impling Jars. The rate of obtaining clue vessels are increased by 10 times. Clue scrolls have the lowest amount of possible steps. Reward caskets will give the maximum amount of reward rolls, and there is a chance that you will receive another reward casket of the same tier. Additionally, there is a chance for the bonus casket to be upgraded to a tier above the ones that players initially open. The reason why this one is really good because it gives so many points. It's very good if you're rushing relics or if you want to go for Dragon Cup. We did the math and there's about 5,000 points, 4,480 if I didn't do any miscalculations, in all clue related tasks. It's really great that you get to go around and just dig, teleport, and just really fill up the collection slot. There's also the fact that you could just drop the clue if there's something that you don't really like and just move on to the next step is really nice as well. The main reason why I regret choosing this one is actually because I mainly focus on PVM during these leagues, and once I did get my best in slot boots, rangers, wizards, and also the spiked manacles, there was absolutely no reason for me to continue grinding except to rush for tier 8. This brings me to the relic that I should have chosen, which is Bloodthirsty. Players can receive and cancel Slayer tasks remotely. Expeditious Bracelets and Bracelets of Slaughter have a 35% chance to proc, and Superior Slayer monsters spawn a lot more, 1 out of 25. Bonus XP, spawn chance increased, 6 rolls on their normal counterparts drop table, and a 25% chance for Superior Slayer monsters to spawn as a Bloodthirsty variant, which gives you more clues, triple chance of rolling the Superior unique drop table, 9 rolls on the normal counterparts drop table, and the Bloodthirsty unique drop table. The reason why this is great is because you get to have more Slayer XP when it comes to Superiors. You also get to farm Slayer gems, Dust, Mist, Battle Staff, and the best thing is the Imbued Heart, which is really great and a must-have, especially if you're doing a mage build. But for me, honestly, the main reason why I really want this is because I didn't realize the Bloodthirsty drop table. It gives you a lot of supplies, secondaries, and seeds. As I mentioned, I'm doing a lot of PVM during this league, and it's great to be able to farm a lot of secondaries without really having to go out of my way to get them, including, let's say, red spider eggs, white berries, snape grass, limpwort roots, and it's just really great to be able to do that while passively training Slayer. Now let's go into tier 6, which has Equilibrium, Farmer's Fortune, and Ruinous Powers. Equilibrium gives players basically just bonus XP. You'll get additional 10% of the player's total level, and 20% if you are training your lowest skill. It does stack really well with Production Prodigy. This is really good if you want to train a lot of skills and get points at the same time, as it is about 1600 points per skill at 50 mil XP. Overall, if you want to get 50 mil on everything, that's about 36,000 points, which is great. Remember that Leagues already gives a lot of boosted XP already, which makes this one a little bit underwhelming compared to the other two. The second one I want to talk about is Farmer's Fortune, which is one that a lot of my friends ended up taking, and honestly, no one has any regrets yet. Players have a 20% chance to save the seed or sapling that was planted. They grow instantly and never catch diseases, and you will harvest patches 25 times faster, giving triple the usual yield and turned into banknotes automatically. This is actually really nice for a variety of reasons. 50 mil farming is basically guaranteed and honestly really fast. Contracts can be done very easily, and it's kind of a few points, but you do get a lot of seeds and whatever you need from them as well. For me, I didn't feel like I would be short on pots if I have methods of restoration or boost. For instance, I have Tob, but if you do have the secondaries, you can basically just have infinite of anything, which is really nice. The one that I ended up choosing was Ruinous Powers, which basically allows you to access the Ruinous Powers spellbook, which allows you to access the Ruinous Powers prayers, whatever. This one is very interesting because it gives you a prayer book that is more focused on the offense, sacrificing the defense parts of everything. This is honestly really nice for people that don't have access to Chambers of Xeric, for the Rigor and Augury, or if you don't have access to Pyre. For me, this was a very interesting thing as I am PVM focused, and it just kind of felt interesting to be able to test out this prayer book since I didn't get to do it last time. One of the main prayers that I really enjoy is Metabolize, which basically allows me to attack 1 tick faster after eating food. Again, because I'm doing a lot of PVM and raids and stuff like that, it does feel nice as I'm gulping down Karambwans that I actually get to attack a little bit faster, which is what I really enjoy. It's gonna feel terrible when I go back to the main game and just realize that it just takes forever to be able to attack after eating. I don't know, I just feel like this one's really interesting. Now let's go into tier 7 and 8, which are very PVM focused. Tier 7 is split into Berserker, Soul Stealer, and Weapon Master. Let's go into Weapon Master first. Special attacks will always result in a successful hit against NPCs, damage increased from 0 to 20% of the player's max hit. Special attack energy is restored 30% every 30 seconds, with a boost for Lightbearer as well. And the most interesting thing is, if you do not have enough special attack energy, you can sacrifice 25 hit points, allowing you to just basically spam special attack. Now, this one is very interesting and very dependent on the playstyle. If you do have D-Claws, Voidwaker, And especially if you do have Asgarnia for God Swords or anything, this is really, really great. This basically allows you to do a lot of very, very interesting tech, such as Phoenix Necklace and just dumping specs into bosses, which allows you for very, very, very fast kill times. But for me, after seeing this a few times, it felt like it was just such a grind to watch people kill bosses within 5-7 seconds, TP out just to go back in, just farm it again. For me, I really do enjoy the PvM experience. So having to do very, very fast speed runs, including, let's say, 10-second Vorkath kills, TPing out just to go back in, just to do another 10-second kill, feels a little bit repetitive and kind of defeats the purpose of a lot of things. Though it is very interesting to optimize and really go for very, very fast runs. However, because I chose to stream and collect all uniques from all 3 different raids, I didn't have access to the very, very unique specs, which means at the end of the day, I didn't end up choosing the Weapon Master Relic. The second one I want to talk about is Soul Stealer. The player's minimum hit is increased by 10% of their max hit. Upon a successful hit, there is a 50% chance that player's hit points and prayer is restored by 10% of the damage dealt. However, this will not proc on multi-hits. Soul Stealer is honestly just very, very nice because you don't have to worry about eating or restoring prayer as much as you have to. Less eating equals more damage, means taking in less supplies, and it's just less stress overall. This relic is honestly very, very nice for all different types of content, whether you're just AFKing doing some Slayer or if you're doing some PvM, but you don't really get to see the effects that it has as much as you can with the Berserker, which is the one that I ended up choosing. Berserker has 2 effects. One is that the damage is increased by 0.4% for every hit point missing, kind of works like the Derox set effect, and the fact that you are guaranteed to hit your max hit on an NPC if the NPC is at full health. This is honestly really, really great for a variety of reasons. Let's talk about the second part first. If you do have a Dragon Warhammer or a BGS, it means you are guaranteed to lower a boss's defense. If you don't have any of those, that's fine too, because if you are using ranged or mage, you can honestly stand really, really far away and land 2 to 3 max hits before the Berserker effect wears off. This is honestly really, really good for bossing, but at the same time, if you're just farming, doing Slayer, or just looking for a unique item, you're also doing a lot of damage for every single new monster that you're hitting. However, in a group encounter, one of the main problems is figuring out who's actually going to hit the boss first. Is it going to be your ranger with a T-bow, your major with a shadow, which these can work together at the same time, or are you going to let your melee go up and smack the boss with a BGS or Warhammer? These are some things that kind of work against each other from time to time, so that's kind of the downsides of that. Let's talk about the second part of this relic, which is the Derok effect. Obviously, the best thing to do is to sit at 1 HP, but there are times when sitting at 1 HP can't protect you from all sources of damage, resulting in a very awkward death. However, this relic is so strong you don't even have to sit 1 HP. If you max out at 99 HP and you do have 49 HP, it does give you kind of a 20% increase in damage, which is honestly really, really good. However, if you do decide to camp at very, very low HP, this actually pairs really, really well with a tier 8 relic called Undying Retribution, which means I guess we talk about tier 8 now. Now onto our 8th relic, which is split into Guardian, Executioner, and the one that I regret picking the most out of this entire league, Undying Retribution. Let's talk about Undying first. Upon death, the player's hit points and prayer points are fully restored, doing damage in a 7x7 area around your player, which is like 3 tiles on either side of you, and it does up to 200% of your prayer level. So if you're 99 prayer, you do 198 damage to everything within the radius. This obviously does not work on anything that are immune to recoil damage. For NPCs that are larger than 1 tile, the game only counts the southwest tile as their main entity, and therefore they can only be damaged on that tile. Upon using the ability, you do actually have a cooldown of 3 minutes, and if you do die in that time, you actually die. So the first reason why it's not exactly the best relic is because I do a lot of PvM and raids. Within these, a lot of the bosses are actually really, really big, and the main problem is that you can't actually reach the southwest tile. 2 of the bosses that come to mind right now are the final phase of Ohm, the Ohm head, and Zebak, for example. This relic can be actually split between 2 types of people. One, for instance for me, is for someone who is really bad at PvM and gets scared a lot. If you somewhat get a little bit better at the game, you end up not really utilizing this relic a lot of times. There are a lot of raids where I just end up not dying. because I'm so scared to use it and then actually die afterwards. And it ends up just being unused a lot of times. Obviously, you have the really, really good players that end up using this as a very unique playstyle, which means basically bombing every single boss you can on cooldown because they know for a fact that later on they don't have to reuse it. One of the main places that I personally enjoyed using this relic was actually the Shaman's Room before I got T-Bow, and it's just really, really nice to see to do a lot of damage and instantly wipe the room in a very, very fast way. One thing I did find out later on is that you can actually do it to both of the Tightrope Deathly Rangers, and that saves a lot of time and a lot of supplies. One of the things that is really difficult about this relic is that a lot of times there are instances where you proc your Undying Retribution only to instantly die again because, well, that's kind of a positioning error or something, and you just end up planking anyways. At the end of the day, I just feel like I'm not personally good enough at the game to fully utilize the fast, high AoE damage to its fullest, and that's why I feel like it's a little bit difficult to use. And when you get a little bit better at PVM, you end up just not using it at all, and it just kind of sucks that way. The second relic I want to talk about is the Executioner, which is absolutely amazing, and a lot of people really, really, really do enjoy using this one, especially in group PVM or just in anything, to be honest. What the Executioner relic does is that players are given the Sage's Axe, which allows players to instantly kill targets who have less than 20% of their health remaining. It's a 5-tile range with 7 tiles on long range, and it does up to 750 damage per hit. Well, you could just spam it bosses that actually have more than 750 health. This is very nice for a lot of bosses, high level PvM, and just for a lot of group content. So the reason why this one is really, really good is because it allows you to skip a lot of the enrage phases and chaotic fights. For instance, head phase for Ohm and even Berserker. A lot of things can be skipped in the most chaotic and most difficult parts of the raid. For me, personally, I do enjoy learning mechanics of the game and not just skipping everything, but to be honest, it's leagues. We'll learn that in main game, it doesn't really matter. Now for the issues that it does have, it is really good for getting points at raids, but it also makes it so that people don't want to raid with you because you end up sniping all of their purples. The good side is you can actually get a lot of points when it comes to this, but I have also seen a lot of instances where Axers do not want to be raided with. While it is important for every single team to have one Axer in order for faster clears, once your team does get a lot more capable and you run deathless raids or whatever it is you're doing, more than one Axer does mean that you're not going to have a tier 8 relic on your team when it comes to that time. Kind of similar to having an Undying Retribution player like me who doesn't die. So let's talk about the most consistent and the relic that I should have picked, the Guardian, aka the Egro relic. Players are given the Guardian Horn, which is basically a really, really strong Thrall that you can summon alongside your Thrall if you have that. Attacks for 30 minutes, damage roll of 6 to 15 with an attack to 5, and accuracy roll of 45,000, which I have no idea. It's very accurate. It will always attack with a style that the NPC has the lowest defense bonus for. Multi-combat areas, they can actually do area attack damage if the primary target is weak to range or magic, which, by the way, can be toggled, which is really, really nice. The plus side, obviously, it works really, really well in almost every single place, especially in Nilo's room, in Baba room, anywhere where there is a lot of stuff that you have to do. It's just really, really nice overall, and you could really, really see the difference in terms of everything. In bosses, you don't really see that as much because your Guardian will just be doing damage and it will just chip away, kind of like your normal Thrall, which kind of is the main reason why I didn't pick it. As much as it is really, really good, there isn't a really special thing that you could see. Kind of like how the Soul Stealer relic works. You can feel your damage being higher, but there isn't a really, really game-defining, game-changing playstyle that really changes a lot of things. However, this can be changed if you just spam the horn and do a certain technique to kind of reset the Guardian for higher DPS. The best part about this relic is that compared to everything else, there are just basically no downsides. Everyone can bring one in, you're not going to be griefing each other. As boring as it is, it's just probably one of the best relics to bring. So there you have it. There are 10 days left in the league, more or less. And whether you are a new player that is looking to unlock a new relic, or you're an existing player making your 7th alt account, because why not? Hopefully this gave an idea for the pros and cons based on my personal experiences and what I've seen. And well, yeah, that I don't know how to close out YouTube videos. Goodbye!